Take my sister. She's the beautiful one. Viola Ashworth's voice cracked on the last word, but she did not look away from the man who stood in her father's ransacked study. He was tall, he was still. He was the reason 3 solicitors had come to the house this week with papers that smelled of old authority. Lord Caelan Morrow, whom the broadsheets called the reclusive king of Morrow Hall, stood among the wreckage of her family's fortune, as though he had arrived precisely where he intended to be. "I chose you," he said. The words landed without ceremony. No smile, no blinking. His gray eyes held the flat calm of a frozen pond. Viola felt the same chill she had felt 11 years ago in a lamplit corridor at the Hanover Rooms, when a stranger had pressed a handkerchief into her trembling hand and told her that crying at a ball was the bravest thing he had ever witnessed. He did not remember her, she was certain of it. "You chose me for what, exactly?" Viola said. She stepped over a ledger her late father's creditors had thrown to the floor. "My sister Rosalind is 27, accomplished, and has the kind of face that makes poets abandon rhyme. I am 32. I speak 4 languages no one requires, and I can read a contract faster than your solicitors can draft one." "I know," Lord Morrow said. The third person in the room cleared her throat. Lady Philippa Ashworth, Viola's aunt by marriage, stood near the door like a woman waiting for a carriage she had not ordered. Her gloves were buttoned, her expression was not. "This is indecent," Lady Philippa said. "You arrive unannounced, you refuse to speak with Rosalind, and you make an offer of— what precisely? Patronage? Employment? Marriage?" She said the last word the way one might say amputation. "Arrangement," Lord Morrow said. "Miss Ashworth possesses something I require. I am prepared to settle the entire Ashworth debt in exchange for her exclusive counsel." Viola's pulse kicked. The Ashworth debt was not a number one wrote on a napkin. It was the reason this house would be seized in 14 days. It was the reason Rosalind had stopped eating breakfast. It was the reason Viola had spent every night for 3 months reading her dead father's contracts by candlelight, searching for the clause that would save them. She had found something else instead. Hidden among the late Sir Edmund Ashworth's papers was a leather folio containing a document older than the century. It was written in a language Viola had identified as medieval Occitan, and it referenced a bloodline, a binding, and a cure. She had translated it in 2 sleepless nights. The document described a remedy for a condition it called la maladie de l'ombre, the shadow sickness, a wasting that afflicted certain immortal beings, a wasting that could only be reversed by someone who carried a particular lineage. Viola had thought it was fiction. Then Lord Morrow's solicitors had appeared. "You need my blood," Viola said quietly. She watched his face for the twitch, the tell, nothing moved. "Or something in it. The folio my father kept. You want it back, and you want me along with it." Lord Morrow's stillness deepened. It was not the stillness of patience. It was the stillness of something that had learned, over a very long time, not to startle its prey. "Your father was my archivist for 30 years, he said. "He understood the terms of his employment. He was not meant to die before returning certain materials." "How inconsiderate of him," Viola said. She did not blink either. Lady Philippa stepped forward. "Viola, I forbid you to entertain this. The family's reputation—" "Has a 14-day lifespan, Aunt," Viola said, "after which we have no family, no house, and no reputation to protect. I would rather negotiate from a chair than from the street." She turned back to Lord Morrow. "I have 3 conditions." His left eyebrow rose 1/4 of an inch. It was the most expressive gesture she had seen from him. "First," Viola said, "the debt is cleared before I set foot in Morrow Hall. Not after, not in installments. Rosalind keeps this house free and clear. Second, I retain possession of the folio. You may consult it in my presence. You do not take it. Third—" She paused. She counted the books on the floor. 7. She always counted things when her nerves fired. "Third, you tell me what you are." The room went very quiet. Somewhere in the house, a clock struck 4. The sound reached them through two closed doors and a hallway, muffled, as though time itself was trying not to interrupt. "You already know what I am," Lord Morrow said. "I want to hear you say it." He did not say it, not yet. Instead, he extended his hand, pale, ungloved, cool as marble when her fingers brushed it, and said, "Agreed, all three." Lady Philippa made a sound like a kettle being removed from the heat. She swept from the room, and her footsteps struck the hallway tiles with the precise rhythm of a woman composing a furious letter in her head. Viola withdrew her hand. The cold lingered on her skin like a question she had not yet answered. 3 days later, the debt was settled. Viola watched from the upstairs window as the solicitors departed, their leather cases lighter by the weight of every lien against the Ashworth estate. Rosalind stood beside her, smelling of rosewater and confusion. "I don't understand why he chose you," Rosalind said. It was not cruelty. Rosalind had no talent for cruelty, only for honesty delivered without padding. "Neither does he," Viola said. She picked up her traveling case, 9 buttons on it. She counted them twice. "But I intend to find out." Morrow Hall sat in the Derbyshire hills like a dark jewel set in green velvet. The stone was black, the windows narrow, and the gardens immaculate in a way that suggested they had never been touched by human hands. The air smelled of peat and something older, iron perhaps, or the mineral tang of deep water. A man named Thorne met her at the door. He was Lord Morrow's steward, white-haired and watchful, and he carried himself with the careful authority of someone who had served a long time in an unusual household. "Miss Ashworth," Thorne said. "His lordship is not available until dusk. I will show you to the library." "Not available until dusk," Viola repeated. She counted the steps as she followed him. 23 to the first landing. Of course he isn't. The library was magnificent. Floor to ceiling, the shelves held texts in Latin, Greek, Arabic, and languages Viola could not identify. The room smelled of calfskin and beeswax. A fire burned in the grate despite the mild spring weather, and the curtains were drawn against the afternoon sun. Viola opened her traveling case and removed the folio. She had spent the journey rereading the critical passage. The cure for la maladie de l'ombre required blood freely given from a carrier of the Ashworth line. Not taken, not coerced. Freely given. The document was explicit on this point, which meant Lord Morrow could not simply take what he needed. He required her consent, her presence, and her continued cooperation. She had power. Real, measurable, irreplaceable power. The question was what to do with it. Lord Morrow appeared at 7. The last daylight had faded, and the library existed now in firelight and lamplight. He looked different, not better or worse, more present, as though the darkness gave him permission to inhabit his own skin more fully. "You've read the folio again," he said, glancing at the pages spread across the table. "3 times since arriving," Viola said. "Your shadow sickness. How advanced is it?" He sat across from her. The firelight caught his face, and she saw what she had missed in her father's dim study. The faint hollows beneath his cheekbones, the slight tremor in his left hand. He masked it well. But Viola had spent years reading contracts for hidden weaknesses, and bodies were just another kind of text. "Advanced enough that I cannot survive another decade without the remedy," he said. "Then we should discuss terms properly," Viola said. "The debt settlement was the price of my attendance. The cure itself will cost you something additional." "What do you want?" "Information." She leaned forward. "My father served you for 30 years. He died in a study full of ransacked papers. His creditors appeared within a week of his passing, armed with debts I had never seen documented. Someone wanted this folio, and someone wanted my family destroyed in the process. I want to know who." Lord Morrow's gray eyes flickered. It was the first time she had seen genuine emotion cross his features, not discomfort, but recognition. "Her name is Lady Gwendolen Rask," he said. The name landed like a stone in still water. Viola had heard it. Lady Rask was a fixture of London's most exclusive circles, a widow of considerable wealth whose late husband had owned half the shipping concerns in Bristol. She is also a vampire, Lord Morrow continued, and she has wanted access to the Ashworth bloodline cure for 60 years, not to heal, to control. Whoever holds the remedy holds power over every afflicted immortal in England. Including you, Viola said. Including me. Viola sat back. She counted the flames in the grate, 5 visible, 1 hidden behind the log. Then she killed my father, or had him killed. I believe she engineered his financial ruin, Lord Morrow said. The debts were fabricated, the creditors were her agents. She hoped that with your family destroyed, the folio would surface in the estate sale and she could acquire it anonymously. But I found it first, Viola said. You found it first. Something turned over in Viola's chest. Not warmth, not yet, but the click of a mechanism engaging. This was not just a transaction. This was a war. And she was standing in the middle of the battlefield holding the only weapon that mattered. I will provide the cure, she said. Willingly, on my terms, at intervals I control. In exchange, you will help me prove that Lady Rask forged my father's debts and restore my family's name. And you will tell me, right now in plain words, what you are. Lord Morrow looked at her for a long moment. The fire popped, a log shifted. Somewhere deep in the house, Thorne's footsteps measured a distant corridor. I am a vampire, he said. I have been alive for 412 years, and I remember more than you think I do. Viola's stomach dropped. You remember the Hanover rooms. I remember a girl crying behind a curtain, he said. I remember giving her a handkerchief. I remember that she said, if this is what society is, I shall learn to read contracts instead. I did not know her name. I did not know she was Edmund Ashworth's eldest. I did not know she would grow into the only person alive who could save me. The fire cracked. Viola swallowed. You should have mentioned that before I set my price, she said. I would have charged more. He almost smiled. Almost. The first week at Morrow Hall established a rhythm. Viola worked in the library during daylight hours, translating supplementary texts that Thorne brought her from locked rooms she was not yet permitted to enter. At dusk, Lord Morrow would appear, and they would review her findings together. The cure required a small quantity of her blood, drawn carefully, mixed with specific compounds described in the folio. Viola insisted on performing the preparation herself. She measured, she mixed, she counted every drop. 12 drops precisely. The number mattered, the folio was specific. On the 8th day, Lady Rask arrived. She came without invitation, in a carriage so black it seemed to absorb the twilight. Viola was in the entrance hall when Thorne opened the door, and the woman who stepped through it was striking, tall, sharp-featured, dressed in deep burgundy silk. She smelled of ambergris and authority. Miss Ashworth, Lady Rask said, as though they had met before. How industrious of you to find employment so quickly after your family's misfortune. Misfortune implies chance, Viola said. Forgery implies intent. I prefer precision in my vocabulary, Lady Rask. Lady Rask's smile did not waver. She turned to Lord Morrow, who had appeared at the top of the stairs with a stillness that suggested he had been there longer than physics allowed. Caelan, she said, you look unwell. The shadow sickness does not suit you. I have a proposal that would ease your suffering considerably. I am already under treatment, Lord Morrow said. Under the care of a mortal woman with no training, no standing, and no protection, Lady Rask said. She glanced at Viola the way one glances at a stain on good linen. I have 3 afflicted elders in my household. They require the cure. I am prepared to offer you an alliance. My elders healed, your position in the council secured, in exchange for the girl and the folio. The girl, Viola said, is standing right here, and the folio belongs to me, not to him. Lady Rask's eyes narrowed. Something shifted behind them, a flicker that was not quite human. My dear, you have no idea what you possess. You are a vessel, a very temporary vessel. Vessels don't negotiate, Viola said. I do. 14 forged debt instruments, Lady Rask. My father's handwriting copied by someone with excellent penmanship and poor understanding of commercial law. The interest calculations are wrong on 6 of them. I've documented every error. The silence that followed had teeth. You are making a grave mistake, Lady Rask said. She gathered her skirts and swept toward the door. At the threshold she paused. I will return, and I will not come alone. Thorne closed the door behind her. The scent of ambergris lingered. She will go to the council, Lord Morrow said quietly. What council? Viola asked. The Vampire Council. They govern our kind in Britain. If Lady Rask tells them that I am dependent on a mortal woman for survival, they will see it as weakness. They may strip my holdings. They may come for you directly. Then we move faster than she does, Viola said. She counted the tiles in the entrance hall. 48, an even number. Good. I need access to those locked rooms, Lord Morrow. All of them. Tonight. He hesitated. Then he handed her a ring of iron keys, each one older than the building that housed them. Call me Kaelin, he said. When you've earned it, Viola said, and walked toward the east corridor. The locked rooms contained centuries of records, council minutes, bloodline registries, correspondence between vampire houses dating back to the Wars of the Roses. Viola read until dawn, translating, cross-referencing, building a case the way her father had taught her to build contracts, brick by brick, clause by clause, leaving no gap for the opposition to slip through. By the third night, she had found what she needed. Lady Rask had petitioned the council twice before to gain control of the Ashworth bloodline cure. Both times she had been denied. The second denial, 40 years ago, contained a note in the margin. If the Ashworth line were to fall into destitution, the folio might be classified as unclaimed supernatural property and subject to council seizure. She didn't just forge the debts, Viola said to Kaelin. She used his name now, having decided he had earned it by giving her the keys. She's been planning this for decades. My father's ruin wasn't opportunism. It was strategy. Kaelin stood by the window. The curtains were open to the night, and moonlight turned his pale features silver. She wants to control every afflicted vampire through the cure. It would make her the most powerful member of the council. Then we give the council a reason to strip her power instead, Viola said. She laid out the documents she had assembled, 12 pages. She had counted them 4 times. He looked at the papers, then he looked at her. This would require you to appear before the council yourself, a mortal woman in a chamber of vampires. I've attended worse. My aunt's dinner parties, for instance. Something happened to his face then. It was not quite a smile. It was closer to the expression of a man who has been living in a dark house and has just noticed someone opening the curtains. You are remarkable, he said. I am thorough, Viola said. Remarkable is what people call women when they want to avoid the word dangerous. The council summons arrived 2 days later. But it was not the summons Viola had planned. Lady Rask had moved first. The document, delivered by a pale young man who did not breathe while he waited for a response, declared that Miss Viola Ashworth was unlawfully withholding supernatural property, the folio, and that Lord Kaelin Morrow was mentally compromised by the shadow sickness and therefore unfit to manage his own affairs. Lady Rask had petitioned for emergency guardianship over his estate. She's trying to have you declared incompetent, Viola said, reading the summons aloud in the library. Her voice was steady. Her hands were not. And you arrested for theft of council property, Kaelin said. He stood very still. The tremor in his left hand was worse today. The folio is not council property. It belonged to my father. The council may not see it that way, not with Lady Rask's allies voting. Viola set down the summons. She counted the words on the page. 143. An odd number. She did not like odd numbers. When is the hearing? She asked. Tomorrow night, at the assembly rooms in Bath, the council uses the lower chambers after the human gatherings conclude. Then I need to prepare testimony, Viola said. And I need you to do something you will not enjoy. What is that? Show them the tremor, show them you are ill, and then show them that I am the only one who can make it stop. He looked at his shaking hand. Then he looked at her. You are asking me to show weakness before my enemies. I am asking you to show the truth. There is a difference. The silence stretched. Then he nodded, once, like a man stepping off a cliff and trusting the air. They traveled to Bath in a curtained carriage. The journey took 7 hours. Viola spent 6 of them reviewing her evidence, and one watching Kaelin try to hide the pain that the daylight, even filtered through heavy curtains, caused him. His skin grew translucent near his temples. She could see the veins beneath, blue and branching like winter trees. Does it always hurt this much? She asked. Only when I am near someone I do not wish to frighten, he said. She reached across the carriage and took his trembling hand. His skin was cold. She held it anyway. 12 minutes. She counted. The assembly rooms in Bath were grand in daylight and eerie in the hours after midnight. The lower chambers were accessed through a door behind the tea room that should not have existed. A door that opened onto a spiral staircase descending into stone corridors older than the building above. The council chamber held 11 vampires seated in a half-circle. Lady Rask occupied the center chair, dressed in black silk, her expression composed and lethal. At her right sat a broad-shouldered man, introduced as Lord Haverhill, her most powerful ally. At her left, a thin woman called Lady Sefton, who watched Viola with open curiosity. The mortal enters, Lady Rask announced. How novel. The mortal has a name, a case, and 12 pages of evidence, Viola said. She stood in the center of the chamber. The stone floor was cold through her boots. She counted the council members. 11. Odd number. She breathed. Shall I begin, or would you prefer to continue narrating my entrance? A murmur rippled through the chamber. Lord Haverhill frowned. Lady Sefton's lips twitched. You stand accused of withholding supernatural property, Lady Rask said. The folio known as the Ashworth Codex. It contains the sole remedy for la maladie de l'ombre. You will surrender it to the council. The Ashworth Codex was commissioned by my ancestor in 1462, Viola said. It was written for the Ashworth family, maintained by the Ashworth family, and inherited by me upon my father's death. It is personal property, not council property. I have the chain of provenance documented. She laid the first 3 pages on the stone table before the council. Lady Rask did not look at them. Furthermore, Viola continued, I wish to present a counterpetition. Lady Rask has accused Lord Morrow of mental incompetence. I assert that Lady Rask herself has engaged in criminal manipulation of a mortal family to seize control of the Codex. Lady Rask's composure flickered, just for a moment, like a candle in a draught. I have here, Viola placed 6 more pages on the table. Copies of 14 forged debt instruments filed against my father's estate within days of his death. The forgeries contain 6 mathematical errors consistent with someone unfamiliar with English commercial interest rates. I have also located Lady Rask's previous petitions to this council, both denied, and a notation, in council minutes, establishing that Lady Rask was advised that the Ashworth family would need to be in destitution before the codex could be seized. The chamber went silent. Lord Haverhill leaned forward. Lady Sefton picked up one of the pages. These are serious accusations, Lady Sefton said. They are documented accusations, Viola said. 11 documents. I counted them. Twice. Lady Rask stood. This mortal has no standing before this council. She is a debtor's daughter playing at law. The codex belongs with those who understand its significance. I translated the codex, Viola said, from medieval Occitan. In 2 nights. Can you read Occitan, Lady Rask? No answer. Can any member of this council read Occitan? Silence. Then the codex is useless without me, Viola said. The cure requires willing participation from an Ashworth blood carrier. It requires precise preparation that only someone who can read the original text can perform. 12 drops, specific compounds, exact measurements. You cannot take the codex and hand it to anyone. Without me, it is just old parchment. She turned to the full council. Lady Rask does not want to heal anyone. She wants to control who gets healed and who doesn't. She wants to hold every afflicted vampire in England hostage, including Lord Morrow. Kaelin stepped forward then. He raised his left hand. The tremor was visible to everyone. The shaking of a being who had survived 4 centuries now betrayed by his own immortal blood. I am ill, he said. Miss Ashworth has been treating me. Willingly, on her terms. Terms that I accepted because she demanded fairness, not submission. If this council strips her of the codex and hands it to Lady Rask, you will not be protecting our kind, you will be creating a tyrant. Lady Rask's face went white. Not pale, she was already pale, but white like paper, like ash, like something burned away. You would side with a mortal over your own kind? I would side with the truth, Kaelin said. Over anyone. Lady Sefton set down the page she had been reading. I have examined the forgery evidence. The errors are clear. I move to investigate Lady Rask's financial dealings with the Ashworth estate. Lord Haverhill hesitated. Then he looked at Lady Rask, and something shifted in his expression. The careful recalculation of a man who has just realized which side of the table the power sits on. I second the motion, he said. Lady Rask's mouth opened, closed. She looked at Viola with an expression that was not anger, but something worse. The dawning comprehension that she had been outmaneuvered by a mortal woman with a talent for counting things. This is not finished, Lady Rask said. It is for tonight, Lady Sefton said. Miss Ashworth, the Council recognizes your ownership of the Ashworth Codex. We further recognize your right to administer the cure under terms you set. Lady Rask, you are suspended from the Council pending investigation. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Lady Rask swept out, her black silk trailing behind her like a shadow fleeing from light. Viola stood in the center of the stone chamber and breathed. Her hands were shaking now. She had held them steady through the entire proceeding, and now they trembled with the force of everything she had not allowed herself to feel. Kaelin crossed the room to her. Not fast, deliberately, humanly, so as not to frighten her. You were magnificent, he said. I was thorough, she said. And then, because her voice cracked, remarkable is what people call women when they want to avoid the word dangerous. You said that wasn't a compliment. I was wrong, he said. It is the highest compliment I know. He took her hand. His skin was still cold. She held it anyway. You remembered the Hanover rooms, she said. You remembered a girl crying behind a curtain. I remembered everything, he said. I simply did not know it until you stood in your father's study and refused to look away. The handkerchief, do you still have it? It is in the folio, she said. I pressed it between the pages 11 years ago. I did not know why I kept it. Now I do. He raised her hand. His lips brushed her knuckles. Cool, careful, a question rather than an answer. She did not pull away. I will continue the treatment, she said, on my terms. I would not have it any other way. And I will want access to the full archive at Morrow Hall. Every room. No locked doors. Agreed. And you will call me by my name. Viola, he said. It was the first time. Her name in his mouth sounded like a word in a language she had not known she spoke. The carriage ride back to Derbyshire was quieter than the ride to Bath. The evidence had been submitted. The investigation was underway. Thorne had sent word that Lady Rask's agents had been seen departing Morrow Hall's grounds. "What happens when you are healed?" Viola asked. Dawn was still hours away. The countryside was black beyond the curtains. "I continue," he said, "as I have for 4 centuries." "And me?" He looked at her. In the dim carriage lamp his eyes were not gray but silver, and the hollows beneath his cheekbones were already less deep. The first treatment was working. "I have something to offer you," he said. "Not immortality. I would not ask that. But the council has a position, keeper of the codex. It is a recognized title. It comes with authority, a seat at the table, and protection under council law. No vampire could touch you or your family again." "A seat at a vampire council," Viola said. "My aunt will be beside herself." "Your aunt is already beside herself," Viola laughed. It was a small sound, surprised out of her, and Kaylin's face changed in a way she had never seen. Open, unguarded, like a man who has been living inside a stone house and has just remembered what grass feels like. "I accept the position," she said. "Not because you offered it. Because I earned it." "You did. And I want something else." "Name it." She leaned across the carriage. She kissed him. Once. Briefly. His lips were cool and tasted of nothing mortal. When she pulled back, his eyes were wide. Not with surprise, but with the expression of someone who has been given something they had forgotten they were allowed to want. "That," she said, "was not part of the negotiation." "I know," he said. "It was freely given." He took her hand again. The tremor in his was gone. 12 drops, she thought, the exact number required. She had counted. 2 months later, Viola sat in the Morrow Hall library at dusk, the folio open before her and a fresh translation underway. The locked rooms were all open now. The archive was hers to catalog and protect. A letter from Rosalind lay on the side table, filled with news of the restored Ashworth house and the completely bewildered neighbors. Kaylin appeared in the doorway. He looked stronger. The hollows were gone. He stood differently now. Not like an old house carrying the memory of weight, but like a man who had found something worth standing straight for. "Lady Sefton's report arrived," he said. "Lady Rask's assets have been frozen. The forged debts are being annulled. Your father's name will be cleared by the next quarter session." Viola set down her pen. She counted the candles in the room. 8. Even. Good. "Sit with me," she said. "I found something new in the archive. A second codex. This one is written in Aramaic, and I believe it describes a way to reverse the shadow sickness permanently, not just treat it, cure it." He sat across from her. The firelight caught them both, the vampire king and the mortal woman who held his survival in her hands and had never once used it as a leash. "Partners?" he said. Viola pushed the Aramaic text across the table toward him. "Read the first line," she said. He looked down. He looked up. "I cannot read Aramaic." "I know," she said, and smiled the way people smile when they have won something that cannot be counted. "That's why you need me."